welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, joined by...
Organoid Zero!
Woo!
Woo!
All right, our topic of discussion today. Last week we discussed, as I, made one of the most obvious statements of the century, something that is means a lot to a lot of fans, the DC animated universe. Now we're going to do the opposite. Not that it doesn't mean something to a lot of fans, but maybe it isn't held in quite as high of regard as DC's animated universe, and that is the 90s Marvel animated universe. Not some of the newer Marvel cartoons that were, released in the 2000s and 2010s, but the 90s.
Yes. When
Marvel went
when Marvel went bankrupt and went, "You'll get an animated series. You'll get an animated series."
Yes. And what's actually funny is there were so many different shows within that universe.
Yeah.
But how many of them actually got watched?
That's a good
or at least
question.
watched on like a grand scale. I mean, obviously there was the two crown jewels.
Oh, absolutely.
Of
Spider-Man
X-Men.
and X-Men.
Yeah, Spider-Man and X-Men. But I mean, you had a Silver Surfer. You had a Hulk.
You had Fantastic Four, I believe,
with the worst theme song ever.
Fantastic Four! Don't need no more. That's ungrammatical.
Oh god, what's even worse about that is it was like an 80s sitcom theme.
It was. There was
outer
also
space
Iron...
adventure.
Oh my god.
They got hit by cosmic rays.
There was also the Iron Man one, which I remember the intro to that one being pretty sick though.
Yeah,
I do remember that.
And Iron Man, well, we'll get more into it, but I think Iron Man is an underrated show. Yep. But
did they also have an X Factor cartoon for a little bit?
I don't recall that one. If they did,
I thought there was an offshoot X-Men one that barely lasted. Hold on. Keep going. I'll look for it.
If there was, then that is something that's so deep in the lore, even I don't know about. Because at least, I became a Netflix subscriber, at least to the streaming service, in 2011. And they had all of the different series. They had, obviously, X-Men and Spider-Man, but that's where they had Hulk and Iron Man, which they paired with Fantastic Four as the Marvel Action Hour on Netflix. Go figure.
Yes.
Which I guess that was a thing because they had all episodes were introduced by 90's Stan Lee. So, I mean.
That's right.
Which was awesome, but,
Yes.
But, yeah, when you think of those universes, you think of X-Men and Spider-Man.
Yes.
But, and I love both of those shows. Don't get me wrong. They're what introduced me to X-Men and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of love for those series, but last week when we were talking about DC's animated universe, we talk about how Batman the Animated Series is, at least to us, everybody's entitled to their opinion, the best Batman anything maybe that ever existed. Everything that came from DC's animated universe is at least in the discussion for the best thing from that character. You may lean towards the Dark Knight universe. You may lean towards the Tim Burton movies. You may lean towards Christopher Reeve. You may prefer the movie Wonder Woman more. You can, there's wiggle room. It's not an undisputed fact, obviously, but you always find those sorts of things in the discussion with best DC blank ever. With Marvel,
not so much.
Except for maybe X-Men being at least said enough to be in the conversation. I don't think you get that as much. Because I don't.
Go ahead.
Well, because I mean, like I said, other than X-Men, but like when it comes to Spider-Man, you might have a few people, our age be like Spider-Man 90s, but like even people our age, you still have a lot of people go, I prefer the Raimi movies. I prefer Spectacular Spider-Man from,
I'm very high on Spectacular.
Yeah.
I am.
No one brings up Hulk, Iron Man, and Fantastic Four, at all. And then even with the X-Men, you still have a lot of people go like, well, I prefer movies. I prefer Wolverine
Evolution
and the X-Men.
Was pretty good. Wolverine and the X-Men was pretty good.
Evolution.
I liked Evolution a bit.
I liked it. Don't get me wrong, but my tangent of the week, like X-Men Evolution, we talked last week about how I was so happy that Justice League came in because I was sifting through superhero media to consume at that point, And we got Justice League, we got Smallville. I liked X-Men Evolution, but I was always like, this isn't the 90s. Like, there's something, it's not there.
It was very new agey.
Yes. There was a lot of good things about Evolution, I love Scott McNeil as Wolverine in that series, but there was a lot of things in it where I'm just like, no, not as good.
X-23 and Spike made their first appearances in that cartoon, right?
Yes. Well, Spike, I don't know about X-23 if she was introduced there, if they introduced her in the comics first.
Did X
might be something worth looking into, but
debut in X-Men Evolution. Laura first appeared in season 3, episode 10 of X-Men Evolution. So she was appeared there too. Dang, nice. They had their own Harley Quinn.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's nothing wrong about. I think when the series got to Apocalypse and when it got to, the mutants being public, it just wasn't. It didn't hit like the 90s cartoon. It didn't hit like It was a good show that got me an X-Men fix.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But we've been hyping it up. Let's talk about the original X-Men series.
Yes.
This show was great. It's up there. The only thing that I think really would make the case against it, the reason I don't think people hold in as high regard is Batman, which came out, I believe, the same year.
Yep.
Is just because I feel like, well, one, the animation was so much better in Batman.
Yeah.
And I feel like the voice cast was so much better too. I'll slide on the voice cast. They had some good stuff, some good actors and actresses in there, but one felt like Batman felt like, hey, let's get these great actors. Let's get these, because they get people like Mark Hamill. They got Luke Skywalker to do Joker. You had Kevin Conroy was an accomplished theater actor, who went to Juilliard. You had so many maybe not well-known A-list actors, but you had a lot of people with a hell of a resume in live action media playing voicing these characters, whereas with X-Men you kind of just got hey, here's the voice actors that they kind of, here's kind of the pool of the affordable voice actors that were voicing a lot of cartoons or were voicing stuff in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they did. Now to their credit, they all made the roles their own.
Yeah. Cal Dodd was Wolverine until Steve Bloom showed up.
And Scott McNeil,
and Scott McNeil too, yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I don't know half the voice actors' names off the top of my head. I could tell you, Rob,
Yeah.
Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy, Lauren Lester. I struggled with it last week, but I know Tim Daly, George Newbern. I know Dana Delaney, like right off the top of my head. And these days I know Steve Bloom.
That was one difference with the thing, though, is that DC stuck with their people for years.
Yes.
Marvel, when they made a new cartoon, they went, "We're just recasting you,"
and they didn't share the universe.
Yeah.
But X-Men, it was a great show. It really, even though I'm kind of, maybe it sounds like I'm throwing shade towards it. It was like if you could embody 90s X-Men, it is that cartoon. It was gritty. It was, the 90s X-Men, as beautiful as Jim Lee's art is, it wasn't like this really polished, pristine sort of book.
No, it was dirty.
It was gritty and dirty, and it was the 90s, and that cartoon, along with Spider-Man, that is the 90s of those franchises in the books. So in that respect, the shows are perfect, at least for that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, it's mostly because it plays in my head of these Let's Players that I watch quite a bit. But there's a lot of lines that I end up quoting from there, and I tell you the amount of times I've said, "This one's for you, Morph," when I'm like in a game playing with other people like that. That's never. I'm going to be riddled with dementia in a wheelchair in my 80s in a retirement home. I'm never gonna forget that. One episode.
I say, because they're trying to make this Wolverine's catchphrase I got from the first few episodes. I go where I want to go.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say that like a lot, like playing games as well. Like if I kind of veer off from the party, I just do the I go where I want to go.
Yeah. And Cal Dodd, everything he said is that he's like, "What I need to get from you, Cajun." Everything was just so pronounced and so on. And like the standouts from the early starts, all of them were fantastic. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the girl that voiced Storm was fantastic.
Yes.
But like the lines that you remember are the worst ones. Because I can't remember what the episode is, but she gets stuck in a container with Jubilee. And she's claustrophobic and she's freaking out. "Don't worry, child. I'll create a snowstorm." But yeah, then that was one of the first big spotlights for Jubilee too, because she was always the "I throw fireworks" girl, but she got to be the audience surrogate with everybody.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see. And because of that cartoon, that was the first thing I ever saw Gambit in. And when I tell you, my mother wanted to kill me because I couldn't figure out how to throw a regular card, but I would use masking tape and tape 2 or 3 of them together, and then I got really good with winging the thicker versions of the cards around the house.
Yeah, that show made me fall in love with Gambit. I love Gambit, and and before any comic snobs want to come in, yes, I know he's there's not a lot of depth to Gambit's character, and he is.
That's
Is,
fine.
he is the epitome of 90s cool.
Do you know what he is to that X-Men team?
Not Rogue the character, but lovable Rogue.
Yeah. Do you know what he is to the X-Men team? But he's a little bit more established. He's the Boba Fett of the X-Men. Everyone liked Boba Fett in the movies. He's there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks he does so much until you go back and watch the movies, and he gets kicked off a carrier into the Sarlacc pit and he's dead. But he looked really cool.
I feel like Gambit has earned his way a lot more than Boba Fett has ever earned his way.
He has, but as a kid, you were like, "That's the guy with the bow staff that throws cards." You didn't read the comics to know that he was with the Thieves Guild and then married into the Assassins Guild and all this extra stuff. Right. As a kid, you were like, "He's the one that's not Wolverine, but also looks really cool."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because we couldn't tape knives to our fingers and go into school, but we could bring playing cards.
We could throw cards.
Yes.
And try and fake this Cajun accent, which we didn't know was Cajun. It was just like a Southern Frenchman. That's what I thought. Like, kind of thought for a while. Like,
what's
what's
going
Cajun?
on with you, Chef? You
Oh,
just him and Rogue's relationship always
right.
in the cartoons were fantastic.
Yeah.
Rogue was another standout. Another scene I'll never forget is when Scott's asleep and she's like, she was trying to do something, trying to heal him, and she accidentally touches him and goes, "How do you turn these dang things off?" And her eyes are just blowing all over the teacher room.
Yeah. But yeah,
so
but they had so many good episodes. The X-Men lore was so big, they would have characters just come in for an episode or two.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like, they had 2 Nightcrawler episodes, which were amazing episodes.
Yes.
They were able to really look into, you got almost pretty well the entire lore of the X-Men in that series. You got Magneto, you got Apocalypse, you got Omega Red, you got the Juggernaut, you got the Savage Land, you got having to deal with
Days of Future Past, the Sentinels.
Days of Future Past, Sentinels, Henry Gyrick, you got the whole anti-mutant, it really touched on, the themes of racism were really, really well done for what was, all intents and purposes, seemed like a show made for money first.
It was
like everything in that time period, except for a few
passion projects.
Exceptions,
But that was one thing that X-Men did good before Justice League did it. And we talked last week on Justice League and why I liked season 1 so much. Everything was a 2-parter. X-Men was not afraid to have a string of like 6 episodes in a row that was on one storyline.
Yep.
It was awesome.
And as a kid, I hated it because like the worst thing ever when you're a kid is to be continued, because like, what if you miss it?
Yes,
what if you miss it? What like we're going, you got baseball practice next week and on Saturday morning. I'm gonna miss one, like won't know if they make it.
Yes, exactly. One of those was like when Bishop shows up from the future and they're starting the Days of Future Past stuff. I'm like, what do you mean next time? He's from the future? What?
Mm-hmm. And it's and it was fine, like as an adult and not as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid.
Yeah,
it's fine. Like especially now that you can buy them on DVD and the Disney Plus, and you can just be like, I won't miss it. But as a kid, I like self-contained stories or maybe a 2-parter.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
But the X-Men being like 6 parts, I would hate. And
yes,
as a kid, that made me not like the X-Men show as much as the competition with Spider-Man, Batman, etc.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of those things where it was good for storytelling, but again, you had children in the 90s before they had a lot of diagnosed ADHD cases where you're just not being able to pay attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool that they were going to be like, no, we're going to spend half a season on a storyline, because they go through that shit fast. In 3 episodes, you're out of Master Mold. And the next one, it's they get to Apocalypse fast, and they ramrod him in through Sinister when they're all going to that island, and you have that famous shot of Rogue's ass in the frame. That's super fast. And they just, no breaks ever. They were just going consistently in that show.
Absolutely. And the one thing that stands out to me, especially going back, Beast spent the first season in jail. Like one of the original X-Men, one of the most popular characters, one of the best characters, is not going on adventures with the X-Men in the entire first season.
No. And I remember him being there, and I was still like, Beast is awesome. I can't wait for him to get out, but it's still cool every time we see Beast hanging upside down from his jail cell reading a book, as he was every time we cut back to him.
Yep. but yeah, there were a lot of, they dealt with everything. They dealt with everything the way. And Grant, I wasn't reading. I was. I was young. Comic books were. I didn't have a pull list. I didn't go to a comic shop. Comic books were found in the grocery store at Walmart, and even then, I had to check for those famous last words "to be continued." If it said that, I didn't buy it because who knows when they're going to have comic books again. So,
Exactly.
At that point in time when I was buying comic books, it was a matter of what has a conclusion.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't deep in X-Men lore in the comics at that time. But looking back on it after reading a lot of X-Men comics, I don't know if this is a bold take or how to put it, but I feel like that is a cartoon that does 100% right. I mean, I know there was a few changes, but pretty well 100% right by the source material.
Oh yeah, that was one that, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. They didn't go out of their way to make up new stuff. They just went, we're adapting this storyline, go. We're doing this one, go.
Mm-hmm.
And that was cool. It was like adapting a manga, what they do with anime. They're just like, nope, just put it on the animators.
Yep.
And that was great.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they created some new characters. They created Morph.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few things that weren't, but like part of the original X-Men. But like everything they did was like, okay, yep, they did that in the comic books. Yep, that is how this person. That's this person's origin. Oh yes, this is exactly, you know, like all the way down to Nightcrawler being Catholic.
Yes.
They got it.
Yes. I love when because like, you can just show him in the cartoon and have it be the Blue Devil looking guy who transmorphs or whatever. But for a 90s cartoon, they're like, no, we're going to actually show you the fact that he's a hardcore Catholic and like regularly carries rosary beads with him. I'm like,
yeah.
That's a detail you didn't need, but it's highly appreciated.
Funny story on that. So, I had a Nightcrawler, or actually it was a Wolverine. Like it was like 3 episodes of the X-Men series on a tape.
Yeah.
And not going to get into deeper religious discussion, but I'm
Yep, I get you.
I'm what you would call a Christmas Easter Catholic.
Gotcha,
Christmas Easter
okay.
Lent Catholic.
Yep.
I'm not there every week, but it's there.
Yep. I get what you're saying.
But for my I didn't go to Catholic school, so there was once a week.
I did enough for both of us. It's fine.
Well, but once a week at the church I was going to, they would have at night a class called PSR, stood for Public School Religion, because the kids at Catholic school got religion class during the week.
Yep.
We went to that.
Yep.
And
it's called a catechism for us, basically. So,
okay. Yeah. And there was the episode where they introduced Nightcrawler.
Okay.
And I remember kind of like they were talking about, we ended up having a lesson about, can anyone be, have faith? Can anyone, and again, like, I'm not going to try and get too detailed because that's a touchy subject for a lot of people, but
it is,
but I'm just, I'm not trying to be pushy. I'm just trying to tell a story here. And I remember seeing that, and I remember going back to that first episode with Nightcrawler. Don't judge people until you know the contents of their heart, all those different things. And I remember like telling my teacher, and this was 2001. And I remember telling my teacher, like, I have a tape with an episode of X-Men that like deals with this perfectly. And the teacher was like, can I watch it first so I know it's fine?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll bring it next week. And, she watched it and she's like, I would love to show that. That is perfect. And then like we're going to show it, and one of the nuns did not want to show it, and I remember just kind of saying, like, can you just watch it? I said, like, please, sister, just watch it. You'll
Yes.
forget about the fighting, we all, like this, I feel bad saying this now, but this was 2001, and I remember saying, like, like, we know there's fighting going on. We see it every day on the news. We're at war. Just, but just give it a chance. And she didn't like it, but she liked the message.
Yes.
Especially
Absolutely.
at the end with Nightcrawler being able to get to Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
The heart and soul opened himself up
Yes.
to
Absolutely.
change. And she liked that part. So I will always remember using X-Men to take to a public school Catholic religion class when I was 12 years old.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool to have a character in there where it just feels like this is naturally who he is.
Yes.
And you're not feeling like something's forced on him. This is just, he's a very great, just mixture of a character. A guy who looks like a blue demon, and he's a staunch German Catholic.
Yeah.
Who is just like, no matter what happens, I am a mutant, and I've seen so many things that would disprove whatever, but I still believe it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of
That's a definition of faith.
The definition of faith is Kurt Wagner.
Yes, absolutely.
But they had so many other great episodes. They have the Genosha was great, except for Gambit, like showing up for a island vacation in his X-Men gear. I didn't understand that. Like everybody else in street clothes, why can't Gambit wear some street clothes? Why did they only have one rendering for Gambit?
He always had to look like a BDSM gangster. It's fine.
Oh God.
Until he gets into X-Men 97, where he's allowed to have his cutoffs and his freaking fishnets and shit. Looking like a real man.
And then the one thing, spoiler warning, but if you're listening to these, you've probably seen it, or you're not too worried about spoilers because this is a frank discussion.
Yeah.
The fact that they straight up end it with Charles pretty well dying. Like, you kill, the ending of the series is you kill Charles Xavier.
Yep.
Done.
Yep. And spoiler warning, it lasts for 5 episodes in 97. They're like, oh no, we lost Charles. Wait, he's in space with the Shi'ar Empire just living his life with the love of his life. Like, what the fuck, Chuck? What are we doing here? Him and Lalandra are just chilling in space with the Shi'ar Empire, and shit happens, and they go, I don't like that you're happy. I don't like Charles being here, so go back to Earth, jackass. It's great. It's done well. X-Men 97 is fantastic, but I'm watching this going, there's no damn way Charles is dead. And then, like, 2 other giant character deaths happen almost instantly. I'm like, neither of those are sticking. And almost none of them did until the last episode.
Death with superheroes is like almost like retirement in pro wrestling. It's
yeah.
It rarely ever sticks. Rarely ever sticks.
Yes.
So again, like every show on here, we could go do a complete deep dive. So we're gonna go to the other crown jewel of this universe, and that is Spider-Man the animated series. Now, Spider-Man.
I had that wrong.
That's X-Men. That's X-Men.
Yeah. Wasn't that Joe Perry?
I think so, but the X-Men theme is my ringtone.
Nice.
For anybody calls, it's the X-Men theme.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, I believe that Joe Perry was the one that wrote the Spider-Man TAS theme. I remember it being I swear it was Joe Perry. But
I love the theme, but like looking back on the Spider-Man TAS theme, it really is like,
Yeah, it
Again,
was. It was him.
I go with a lot of wrestling references, and granted, this show came before the Attitude Era, but it really was like the Attitude Era Spider-Man theme. Like, we've moved past, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. No, this is the 90s. This is Attitude. This is gritty. It's Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
That
That is
just
the theme for the 90s.
and that banging just.
Yeah, that's a hell of a riff.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. And that freaking animation that's going on with that not quite cell shaded, but that weird, just freaking like shadowy shit as he's sitting on the webs in the background of the logo.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so cool.
It was, and again, much like X-Men, it adapted obviously not everything from the comics because there was such a very deep lore for Spider-Man. X-Men had a deep lore, but really wasn't hitting its stride until the 70s into the 90s. But like Spider-Man, like from the get-go, was deep, and they didn't get everything, but they got a lot.
Yeah.
Only like real thing that they changed that I thought was weird was they had Hobgoblin come before Green Goblin.
That was weird. And I'm like,
and that being my first exposure to Spider-Man, I was all like, why, Green Goblin was kind of just like he was there, like he had some good episodes and he had like some big, he did a lot to fuck with Peter in the series. But whenever I would hear people talk about Green Goblin being Spider-Man's greatest foe, it's like, it's not the Kingpin. It's not Hobgoblin. They, because I'm used to the show, and they're like, no, the books.
That was one thing when I was younger that really messed with me. I was convinced that like Kingpin belonged to Spider-Man, and that's it, and not that he mostly, in most parts, deals with Daredevil and sometimes with Spider-Man. That really messed with me when I was a kid because I had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. But they do a good job with the show. But again, that also was the epitome of like that. That was even if X-Men was gritty 90s. This was like 90s animation, the epitome of 90s animation, because you'd see like it randomly go to like look at the technology we have. It's a 3D world, and they'd have like the weird like 3D stuff that they're thinking like, look, we're cutting edge and futuristic, and it just dates it even more.
Yeah, we're cutting edge and futuristic. Here's the virus that's going to end the world on this floppy disk.
Yes. A floppy.
I always look back where they're like, here, you need this. It's very rare. And I'm like, I fit one assignment on that in high school. What are you even talking about? What are we doing here?
But, I think the best thing that came out of Spider-Man was the Venom saga. I think they did the symbiotes very well. Led to an X-Men cameo.
Yeah.
Eventually led to an Iron Man and War Machine cameo.
War Machine voiced by James
Avery.
James Avery, thank you. Uncle Phil himself.
Yep.
Yes. That was
they did manage to get a really good, like I remember I kind of downplayed it, but when they've gotten some good actors. I wasn't trying to downplay them, but it was kind of like night and day difference from the people that they were able to get.
And to mention the tie-in, both Batman the Animated Series and Spider-Man both got Mark Hamill.
Yep. Mark Hamill's Hobgoblin, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was like. When I was watching when I was younger, I go, I really recognize him, but I didn't have the technology to look up voice actors. When I got older, I'm like, that's what it was. I knew that voice.
Yes.
Gosh.
But he
was such a menace to society in that show.
Yes, he was. They made Hobgoblin. That was Hobgoblin's finest hour.
It was
that series. But, it was a great show. The nostalgia part of me thinks it's the best Spider-Man cartoon, but I can also look at Spectacular and go, yeah, it's not.
Spectacular, in my opinion, has the best version of the Venom symbiote arc in an animated format.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I know some people might argue that, but their version of Eddie Brock and Peter were also very good in that. And Josh Keaton's an amazing dude.
Oh, I just met him about a month ago.
And so did I. I met him in
Ago.
November.
Yeah, I think you met him the week after I did.
Oh yeah, you commented that on my Facebook. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, super kind guy. Super.
Oh, he's
super
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really cool, and yeah, I I had him sign my my DVD set that I got on sale at Best Buy.
Nice. Was that when they were emptying out
no, not even
media?
that. It was just in there, and it was like, it was in the bin, and they're like, "Oh no, this is $20. It's the whole series." I'm like, "I found it in there, and it has sale $4 written on it." And I kind of got him by the short hair that someone messed up, and he got
That's
it for
awesome.
$4.
That's awesome.
And it's not on Disney Plus, so I'm glad I have it.
Exactly. That was one thing also. The only reason I didn't like, or the main reason why I didn't like Disney getting a hold of the animated Spider-Man rights after a while, because that's one thing that Sony let lapse. That's what killed Spectacular Spider-Man. And then we got Ultimate Spider-Man with Drake Bell, which I didn't mind Drake Bell's performance. It was not Spectacular Spider-Man.
No. That was a fun show, but tangent number 2. It's a double whammy, because one of my biggest pet peeves in just fandom. Look, I love Deadpool, and I love how
the version of him in Ultimate, yeah.
Yes, because but like Deadpool being so popular, and there's a certain section of the fans of every fan base now, because it's I used to say this when I would do wrestling videos, like everybody wants to like Deadpool because it makes them seem like they're smart and on it. So many mediums now feel like they gotta go in that direction. We gotta break the fourth wall. We gotta wink, wink, nudge, nudge, way more than we need to with our references.
Yeah.
Just to make sure everybody knows, like, yeah, we're the smart ones. We like this. And that show to me was like trying way too much to be Deadpool. Trying way too much to... I don't like when mediums, comic books, wrestling, anything goes overboard on the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're all in on we all know this ain't real, and we're all in on it, okay?
Yeah.
I don't really like that. I like it when it's just done by Deadpool, because it's Deadpool.
Yeah.
But when it starts bleeding too much into other comic books, other superhero TV shows, other superhero movies, it takes me out of it. And that already wasn't on Spectacular and the 90s level, in my opinion. And that just kind of sealed it as like, okay.
Yeah, to me, Ultimate was a little bit too targeted at a much younger, not as, like, in my opinion, TAS and Spectacular treated you like you were a more adult of a Spider-Man watcher when you watched it. Ultimate didn't do that.
No.
That was a cartoon and a cartoon. The other ones were Spider-Man comics, but were animated.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. Going back to
back on track.
TAS, one thing that I found out later that was never as big, that I thought was the coolest damn thing on the planet because they look so awesome in the cartoon. I love the Spider Slayers in the cartoon.
Yeah, I know. They made those were like world-ending things, and they weren't really much of anything in normal Spider-Man canon.
No, and like I found out that Alistair Smythe is the guy. I learned to the thing, like he's a guy, one of the designers behind it. And then in the Amazing Spider-Man, the guy, not Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2, you had B.J. Novak playing Alistair Smythe. I'm like,
yes,
y'all are gonna put these in movies, don't? And then nothing happened. I'm like,
yep.
Oh.
Ryan Howard was Alistair Smythe. Yes.
Yes. Dang it! I was just like, no. That was my chance. And you also had Felicia Hardy as a character in that movie, played by Felicity Jones. But
Amazing Spider-Man really was the almost like the 90s Spider-Man of the three different
it
theatrical
was. They
Spider-Man.
weren't afraid to just hammer shit in there.
Yeah.
Even if it did work, they weren't afraid to put it in there.
I'll say this, underrated. Underrated.
I will say my opinion on that movie changes drastically if you rewrite the last eighth of it.
Mm.
Because if you look at the special features of that movie, small tangent, sorry, they had no fucking idea how they wanted to end that movie, because in the special features of that movie, one of the alternate endings is Peter's dad coming back alive and meeting him at the grave when he's looking at Gwen Stacy's grave. That is a very different ending than what they had originally planned. And
Where
they
he
were
just,
also
I'm going to fight Rhino, and we're ending it mid-fire before the fight even begins.
And like, they also had Mary Jane. They had Shailene Woodley cast as Mary Jane, who was going to show up like months after his girlfriend died and just show up at his house. Like, they didn't know how to end that movie, and it hurt it bad.
Yeah. And
but that is the best live action Spider-Man costume in any movie, and I will fight people over that.
I think he's my favorite live action Spider-Man. Cuz he's the, and I say that because Andrew Garfield is, because he's witty, which I didn't think that Tobey Maguire didn't have the wit.
He was your fun uncle.
Yeah. And you know, the MCU Spider-Man is young Tony Stark. So this guy, like, to me, hits, as a Spider-Man fan, hits the bases. He is, other than Peter from the 90s not being a skateboarder, like, he is that Peter, you know?
Yeah, that is very true. But yeah, so one thing we talked about off camera a little bit, which this was, Spider-Man TAS was the cameo graveyard for every other animated series that just didn't work.
Oh yeah.
or other
and
things.
It's what introduced me to it. If it wasn't for Spider-Man TS, I would have known who Daredevil was. I wouldn't have known who Iron Man was.
Nope. I wouldn't have known who Blade was. That introduced me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And Blade, through fighting Morbius, who couldn't suck blood, so he sucked plasma through his hands.
You couldn't say blood on 90s, so it was plasma. Yes.
That was another thing that was weird about that show, that only Batman TAS got away with, really. Back in that time, almost every cartoon had lasers for weapons because they didn't want to have realistic gun violence. The only one that had actual guns on it was Batman TAS. And another thing I didn't find out that blew my mind is if you go back and you watch TAS now, he only throws like 4 punches through the entire show.
Really?
It was some stupid statistic that they didn't want to show actual, like, hand-to-hand violence. So if you go back and look at a bunch of his fights, it's him web-zipping a crate, like a support beam onto someone, or swinging through and clipping into them, or webbing them up and throwing them into a box or something. As it got towards the end, when it get to the end, that's when he started hitting people, yeah. He could get the crap kicked out of him, but Spider-Man couldn't be beating people up.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. The rules for 90s were different.
And they were inconsistent as all fuck.
Yeah, and you could get away with them. Like, you remember the rules where you had to have educational stuff in your cartoons for a while?
I remember vaguely hearing that, but I don't remember.
There was a rule where certain parts of the show had to be educational, and the smartest one to ever do it was the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, because they would do the whole entire episode and you had to have so much time dedicated to education, so they would put it in the end credits. So it never interfered with the episode.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was awesome, but you and me talked about last time also about how Batman TAS and like some other stuff with like Beyond wasn't afraid to go more adult type themes. Yeah. There's one thing that I didn't notice until I bought a set of it, a legal set of Blu-rays, and was rewatching it, and I remember there being an episode, I can't remember how it gets to it, but Spider-Man was helping out this very young girl, and
Oh my god, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, can I know who you are? Whatever. And then Spider Man, without any real hesitation, takes his mask off.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so weird. And then as he puts it back on, and he's like, I'm getting emotional thinking about this. He
Yeah.
like just says, anything for you, like help, and swings away. And then you see the name of the building that pretty much just tells you, yeah, she's not living like another
Terminally
week.
ill children. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
she's gonna die. That's why he showed her who she was.
I remember, like again, I mentioned got Netflix in 2011. I was like, oh, they have the 90s Spider-Man. I'm gonna binge this.
Yeah.
And then I remember certain things. I'm like, oh yes, we're getting to this episode. I remember that. And then I didn't remember that episode. And I watched it, and I remember just kind of being like, okay, like I guess he trusts the little girl. And then I remember just seeing him swing away, and I just went, she's dying.
Yeah.
Like I just yelled that, and like everybody's like in the house was all like what? And I remember just like going she's dying.
Yeah. That's not something a 90s kid's gonna catch when they're like 7 years old, but us adults are, you what?
Yeah.
And the other funny thing, and I had to have someone explain this to me later on, was the joke was that why'd they have Osborn off screen wearing a do-rag? Because him and Harry had the waves in their hair for their hairstyles.
Yeah.
That made no sense whatsoever. But that's how they were drawn and stuff. It made them look menacing. So, yeah.
It was the animation from both don't hold up. Like Batman the Animated Series, Superman, all the DCAU, if you made those shows exactly the same today, no one would bat an eye. If you made those cartoons that way today, unless you're trying to be like make the homage to the 90s, unless that's exactly like what 97 is doing.
Yes.
Then it's just kind of like, what the, like, do you have no budget behind your show?
Yeah. And that's one thing that everyone's like, yo, it looks just like the original. It looks so good. I'm like, no, it doesn't. And then I had a recap thing where I went through all the episodes and we did a big podcast. Everyone's like, it doesn't look that different. And then I pulled up exact episodes and I was like looking through stuff. The reason why it looks so bad, and the animators were talking about this, is the designs had so many freaking lines in them and were so overly done that it was complicated as shit to animate them. So if you hold the 90s designs up to the the X-Men 97 newer one, it's 80% of the way there, but simplified as shit. So it's easier to animate and it looks better.
Yeah. So we've talked about the crown jewels. Now we talk about the rest.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
And
out of all
there's
the other ones,
about to be real here.
I remember one episode of like all these other ones we're gonna mention. I remember the intro to Iron Man, and I remember the one episode where in the Fantastic Four cartoon where Reed Richards fools Magneto into thinking he lost his powers. We talked about that in
episode 1, yeah.
Yeah, with a wooden gun. That's all I remember. That's it.
I remember because again, 2011 Netflix, me.
Yep.
Watching it said Iron Man, but then you watch it and it was the Marvel Action Hour with the guy that voiced Cat from Cat Dog, like doing the narration for that.
Nice.
But I can't think of his name. He was at the same con where I just met Josh, but he was a little out of my price range. He voiced did a lot of voices.
Was that Horowitz?
No, not Richard Horowitz. No.
Horowitz.
He voiced Darkwing Duck. He voiced Cat from Cat Dog. He's done a lot of.
Shoot! I know who you're talking about.
His name's on the tip of my tongue, but like I thought about meeting him, but then I saw his prices, which knowing
Jim Cummings.
Yeah,
Jim Cummings.
Knowing his filmography, he has every right to ask for that price. Yep. But I remember just kind of thinking like, a little
Not
out of
today.
my range, a little out of my range this time, and but he was always introducing it, and now the Marvel Action Hour. It is Iron Man, and then the excitement times 4, the Fantastic Four, and here's your host, Stan Lee. And then there's Stan Lee, greetings, true believers.
Before we get away from it, and I forget, we forgot to mention that Stan's in Spider-Man TAS.
Yes. The last episode, he meets Stan Lee.
As he goes on to find the real Mary Jane with Madam Web.
Okay, so I guess, since we're bringing it up, we'll talk about that. I get that was a good way of ending the show, but fuck, that ending sucked.
They supposedly had another season planned, but something happened to where they couldn't go through with it.
Okay.
But you are correct.
That makes me feel better.
That ending sucks ass. You are very correct.
Yeah, because it really made me feel like, okay, we're gonna go find the real Mary Jane, and then you're like, nope, it's over with. I'm like, wait, what?
Did you also want to smack Madam Web in the face every time she showed up because she always ruined Peter's life every time she showed up?
Yes.
Get this woman away from me. One other thing before we go on to the bad ones, I want to say also, my favorite Spider-Man costume early on, and when they re-showed it in the Spider-Man PS4 game, kind of cemented how cool it looks, even though it's so simple, was the black and silver with the metal plating.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he had a mech. The first Spider-Man ever with a mech.
Gotta have a mech, man.
When they're having the episode where they're facing Superior Carnage or Spider Carnage at the end, and they're like, "You have a robot?" He's like, "Yeah, you guys don't have one." But anyways, we could go on to the real stars of the show, the ones that got like one season each, maybe.
Yeah. Iron Man, and I don't like Iron Man as a character at all. Like I hate Iron Man. I will go on record as saying that. I hate Tony Stark with passion. But I did watch the Marvel Action Hour on Netflix until it went away. And it wasn't terrible. Like, they did kind of a good job with Tony and Rhodey, and they'd have
the Mandarin the main villain in that, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Mandarin and Justin Hammer were kind of the main.
Oh, Justin was in that. I didn't know.
Justin Hammer. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And MODOK was there. So
MODOK was in that cartoon.
Yes. Yeah. So you got the lore, but it was just that it was vastly inferior to Spider-Man and X-Men. But there was some good stuff. They brought in Hawkeye, which I thought was cool. You had Hawkeye as part of the show regularly. You had a lot of kind of the. Wow. You had the Avengers that really, that didn't do anything else other than be Avengers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At that point in time, Hawkeye didn't do anything other than be an Avenger. It was before his solo run.
That solo run is so good.
Amazing.
So good.
But it had some of those, and you had a lot of this the Avengers villain. It was Avengers before Avengers, kind of, because like I said, you had MODOK, you had a lot of just the standard baddies of the Marvel universe, but not a lot of the big bads,
Yeah.
That was good. Then it would go to Fantastic Four, and then I knew after listening to that theme song,
Fantastic Four!
Don't need no more!
That's ungrammatical.
Like, is elastic. It's so bad. Like, I know all the lyrics are bad. Like, Johnny is the human torch.
Oh, wait.
Fly on fucking Mount Rushmore and turn it all into their faces.
Yeah. The thing just loves to fight.
Oh, God.
Richards is elastic. Sue evades from sight.
Like, there was an old Homestar Runner cartoon about theme song, like a Strong Bad Email.
Oh,
if you're into
God.
That. And I remember Strong Bad saying, all these other sitcoms that beat you over the head with the blunt end of the show's premise. It's like, that is the fucking Fantastic Four theme song.
You're right.
It
You're
beats
right.
you over the head with the blunt end of the show's premise.
Yeah. And, that was the only one. Like, the other ones had, like, these banging guitar riffs. And there's, like, Fantastic Four. It's like, it's a sitcom. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
God.
And that's all I've seen. I didn't watch the Hulk. I didn't watch Silver Surfer. I just
I
never got.
forget.
I never got to it before it was taken off. And
I didn't know there was one till you mentioned it in here that Silver Surfer had his own cartoon.
yeah,
I didn't know that. And
and
I
it was like,
lived in front of my TV.
I don't know. I think it was one of the newer ones, or it like got put on network TV later, like
Okay.
after it had been made. Because I remember watching King of the Hill one time. I think the clip's
Okay.
gone like kind of viral on YouTube. Of during King of the Hill, they have like the Silver Surfer swoop in to hype up Silver Surfer on Fox. Like, like those advertisements you get during the
Yeah.
shows, kind of
Yep.
shit. That really, especially if you're recording, like at the time, if you're recording it for your own amusement, it's like, son of a
What
bitch.
are you doing in here?
Yeah. But so I don't know, but like I never watched it. Like
Oh.
again, like I this is why this one's a little bit more difficult to talk about compared to
Yeah.
DC, is because like I'm not going to say I've seen every episode several times
No.
over with DC, but like I've gone on the journey and at
Yeah.
least been there once.
I can say I've watched through the Spider-Man TAS probably 3 times. That I could
Spider-Man
say
and X-Men,
openly.
like I've watched
Yeah.
those, I can say for sure, but the whole universe of that, absolutely not.
Could not tell you.
Unlike Batman, Superman, Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, and that was the weird thing. They could have had that
Yes,
easily.
and they did show up. Like why didn't we get the Avengers? Like because you were seeing Spider-Man got, Iron Man helped him fight Venom. Daredevil helped him fight the Kingpin, and then he never saw Daredevil again.
No. Blade helped him fight Morbius, and then
Yeah.
I think Blade showed up like one other time again.
Punisher was there wanting to kill Spider-Man, just like he does.
Fantastic
in the
Four showed up when they did the was that Battle World? What did they do?
Yeah.
Was it Battle World?
Something like that.
But yeah, the multiversal bringing people together. That it was that the Beyonder? Because I'm pretty sure it was the Beyonder that was a part of that. But yeah, it was. They weren't afraid. Toward the end of Spider-Man's, they were just chucking shit in there because they're like, we have all these other drawings of shit. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, this show got canceled, but it was around. Like you could have led to a Marvel animated universe, like MCU, a prequel to MCU through that, and they just didn't do it. And then eventually there became an Avengers cartoon, but I don't know if that's in the same universe or not.
It's very much. Are you talking about Earth's Mightiest Heroes that came out later?
Not Earth's Mightiest Heroes. There was an Avengers cartoon on Fox.
Really?
But I didn't watch it. Yeah, and it didn't last very long.
Okay.
But it wasn't Earth's Mightiest Heroes because that's like
way later. That show was
way later. That was an amazing show.
I loved Earth's Mighty. That was their Justice League. They finally nailed it.
They finally got it right.
It's so good. And we talk about badass intros. Oh my god. The people behind Cody Rhodes' theme wrote that?
Yeah. You gotta be a great band if you're writing music for Cody Rhodes and the Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just the best. Oh, it was fantastic. For people who don't know this, my YouTube career started out making Ruby AMVs and crack jokes. I made a Ruby version of that Earth's Mightiest Heroes intro. I love that thing.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, like I said, this is just one thing where like fans of this era, I guess, think of everything Marvel touches turns to gold, and rightfully so. But even as great as like the fond memories that we have of part of this was like where Marvel was capable of stinkers back in the 90s, and they were stinkers.
They were stinkers, and I remember it being so cool and whatever, and all the moments were awesome, and then you also get Shocker! I'll follow you to the ends of the earth!
Yeah.
peak voice acting. Perfect.
And Stephen Barnes didn't do a bad job as Peter, but it's just
No, he was great.
Yeah, but there's things like that. Just yeah. And then they had Spider-Man Unlimited, which wasn't even canon.
It wasn't, but I'm one of the few people that thought that idea was cool as shit. An alternate universe one where, like, the Goblin's kind of his buddy, and, like, they're all different type of symbiotes, and they cut that show off at a giant cliffhanger, which pissed me off. Ugh.
I kind of, with the Spider-Man Limited, I kind of had the same, the Batman Beyond kid logic is like,
Yeah.
But at least that's like, well, we still have Peter. It's
Yes,
still,
exactly.
It's different, but it's fine.
Yeah, and then they thought, it would be really great if we got Neil Patrick Harris and MTV made a Spider-Man cartoon. It was like, I didn't know that existed until like 3 years ago.
Again, Netflix. I watched it, and Neil Patrick Harris was good. Neil Patrick Harris was good at the role, but the show was just kind of like, oh, this was an MTV show, all right. And I'm not saying that to be complimentary.
No, it wasn't. And yeah, that was one of those where they're just with like the movies, but more often they're like, every 2 years we're just gonna try a new one because it didn't work out.
Yep.
Which it did. Honestly, they had more hits than misses with Spider-Man cartoons.
Yeah.
So, and even the misses had good stuff. The genuinely only one that I did not like when I went back and watched it was the MTV one. Unlimited had good moments in it. TS had good moments in it. Ultimate, as much as I didn't like it, had storylines that fell through. We talked about Deadpool. We had Will Friedle as Deadpool in the thing, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And they introduced a bunch of characters, made basically the Young Avengers, and then
yeah,
I didn't watch so much of that very, very, very recent one.
There's a recent one.
There was a recent one that had both Spider-Man.
This is news to me.
Yeah, there was one that had Peter and Miles in it regularly as a duo. That
I will have to look into that.
That I can't think of who the crap voices. I think it's Robbie Draymond voices him, if I'm not mistaken.
This was all news to me.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but I know I'm not fever dreaming it because I talked with someone about it, and we were trying to think of where Yuri voiced Spider-Man previously to the Spider-Man games, because in his interview he said that they were against using me because I had voiced Spider-Man before and as younger and now, and I was kind of like, where did you voice him before? And I thought it was that, but I was wrong.
Yeah, this is news to me. I kind of just yeah.
Cartoon. It was in voices Spider-Man in the 2017 Disney XD Marvel's Spider-Man.
Okay, so you mean like recent, but not like
last
year.
X-Men,
not like X-Men 97 in the sense of the word recent. Okay.
No. I don't even know if there's been one since that Robbie Draymond one. There's going to be that new one coming out, the stylistic looking one that I can't remember what it's called. Spider-Man. It's when he's in school. I remember that much, but it's got a unique animation style to it.
Okay. Just keep pumping out Spider-Man cartoons. Yeah.
It gets the bucks. The kids love it.
Kids love it. Well, on that note, I feel like this is a good chance to wrap this one up. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeek9. That one app with stuff on it that's gone through a couple name changes, at athletic_geek89, and Instagram, athleticgeek89. What you?
You can find me. I pretty much think I have everything nailed to the ground at Organoid0, but mostly Twitch and YouTube. Twitch, it's gaming, and my other podcast that I'm part of, Zeroing Out. YouTube is episode reviews. I don't really do A and Bs anymore, like I mentioned, because YouTube likes to strike stuff down. And then Instagram, if you're a cosplayer, that is where my cosplaying and all my convention going things are posted there. So
Okay. Yep.
yeah.
Well, so for Organized Zero, I'm the Athletic Geek. We will see you next time.
Bye.